All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another discussion of Vagabond. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the fourth bind-up, which is volumes 10, 11, and 12 today. And of course, my guest and friend here is Murphy Napier. Hello, Murphy. How are you today?
Hey, Philip, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So let's begin, though, with our general impressions of this bind up volumes 10, 11, 12. What did you think? How are you liking it? How is it going?
I think volume 12 is my favorite so far.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, action is cool, but we're the same way where it's like action is neat. We like action. It's not what we read for. Volume 12, I was reading for the action. I love the chain and sickle stuff.
Yeah.
I love the chasing a ghost and the twist around all that. I love getting lured into the fight. And obviously the artwork in the series is great, but
Yeah.
it was on a different level with volume 12 and depicting that action. So yeah, but lots of stuff to talk about, lots of more philosophy and everything. It was a great time. What did you
Awesome.
think of it?
First thing I thought, like you, the art is actually somehow even better. This is really good stuff. I think that Inoue is a very talented artist, so it's a pleasure to read, even just for that. But like you said, the combination of action and spirituality and the incorporation of themes, this is really starting to feel like a great series to me. So my
Mm-hmm.
general feelings are that I'm getting the love for Vagabond now, and I'm feeling very immersed in the series. So it's a wonderful journey so far, and we'll see where it goes. But so starting with volume 10, we had basically the fight as a consequence that happened in the previous volume in 9, where Jotaro kills the dog, and the men of the Yagyu school are basically kind of about to do him in for the crime. And so we get, of course, our hero Musashi is observing this, and we were wondering when we left off last time, how is he going to react? And now we found out. So what did you think of the fight over the dog?
Yeah. Oh man, it was excellent. Again, I don't read for fights, but holy cow, this one was so fun because of the strategy of it.
Mm,
Um, him him thinking through everything. I loved when the one more impulsive guy stepped up and he said, "I've been waiting for you. We speak the
yeah,
same language." And
yeah,
it's that brutal, impulsive, rage-filled, need to prove myself kind of language that he's talking about here.
yeah,
But then the strategy of it, I need to get to a bridge. I need to make it so that they have to fight me one on one, and then their solution around that, and the combination of the water. And it was all just so exciting to read and to watch. It wasn't, we've had so much one-on-one combat. So to see, or if it's group combat, then it's kind of just done in a flash where it's like, oh no, he's grouped up on, oh, he took them all down. But this was where we really got to see the technique of it. And it was really exciting.
yeah. He's definitely Musashi is evolving in his combat. He's becoming smarter. He's becoming stronger, but he still has an interesting, I think, combination of this drive for strength. And we're going to talk about that when we do get on to volume 11, because there's some interesting stuff in that regard, I think, with the whole father issue. But staying with this fight for a little bit, I thought it was really cool. How it's juxtaposed with Otsu and the
Mm-hmm.
flute. The bamboo
Mm-hmm.
flute is a new thing in here, which I really
Mm-hmm.
love. The juxtaposition of the fight with Otsu. And the other thing I thought was really cool is, along with the action, there is this spiritual thing going on where he is observing. So he has these moments of being in this sort of Zen state.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the quotes, while he's being attacked, and they're kind of like, who is this guy? He says to himself in his mind, "You're all living inside of me as if you're a part of me." And that's a very Buddhist moment there in the
Mm,
story, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, you know more about Buddhism than I do. It's definitely a new discovery for me. But yes, that kind of sight, that ability to connect with everything and to see deeper, to see
Yeah.
beyond what's physical is a big theme here in this story.
Yeah, cool. What did you think of Otsu and the flute and
Oh
her little,
man.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it was interesting. I was shocked when she told the old master that she wouldn't play for him. And it's like, why? It doesn't matter that your technique is bad. Just play it. But that's obviously something very special to her, and it's something that makes her recall, the memories of them leaving, and
Yeah.
going off to battle, and leaving her behind, and all that followed in her life from that. And I loved her recollection of that, and what how much of an emotional journey it was for her to play that song
Yeah.
just for herself, and how much that affected Musashi as well, because obviously he has this connection with her, but he also has those memories, and that's also very meaningful to him.
Yeah. And he sort of hears it, the flute, during the
Yeah,
fight, and it distracts him for a
exactly.
moment.
That
I,
humanity, that darn humanity that he needs to get rid of.
yeah. Yeah. He thinks so anyway. Yeah, it's really well done, and I love the relationship between Otsu and the old master. His name Seki Shusai, the master of the Yagyu school. Again, everyone, please forgive me my pronunciation. But that's really well done. That relationship is very endearing for both of them. I
Hmm.
think we're getting some more depth to Otsu. There's one panel where it shows her as a little girl with this bamboo flute. Apparently, she was abandoned at this temple, which is, we don't know her origins, and I hope we
Yeah.
get into that. That'll be really interesting.
I don't know how we would, though. If she
Yeah,
was found as an abandoned baby, in what way could we connect
yeah.
to her origins?
But the flute, it becomes an interesting symbol too. I think.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
a good point. It does.
might be
But yeah,
some
that's
connection there. Yeah.
yeah, it's true. Somebody eventually might be able to recognize that flute. I kind of like not having her origins,
Hmm.
um, just because that's how it is sometimes. Kids who end up finding a new home and a new family, sometimes they're not able to find that. And I like, obviously, knowing your roots and finding your roots is extremely important
Yeah.
to many children, and if they're able to, then they should be able to seek that out, but sometimes that's not available to people. And it would be interesting to see how she is able to find that self-discovery and work past that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, very cool. One last element of volume 10 that I thought was interesting was what Inoue does with the bridge. It becomes the place of the combat, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously where Musashi gains some insight. But it also, interestingly, it's the site of the reunion between Musashi and Otsu. That's where they initially see each other again.
Mm-hmm.
And the first, he opens his mouth about being the strongest and wanting to go and do in the patriarch Seku Shusai, the master, the old her grandfather, right? And she slaps him, right? There's that moment of smack, right? So, what did you think of their reunion?
Oh, I loved it. All that he's done and all that he's fought through, and the thing that makes him not be able to move is to see her. I thought was a really, really powerful. But then, yeah, I'm proud of her for kind of standing up for her found family and for this home that she has, but also to stand up for herself and say, it's been this long, and this is your response to me. This is what you have to say to me. And just that kind of, I'm worth more than that, and I deserve better than that, you
Good
know?
for her. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He needs a good something or other wake up call.
Yeah.
So,
I think his desire to kind of push her aside, and or to say move aside, and I'm going to get this, is very much his desire, his internal desire of like, this human side of me, get it out of the way so that I can accomplish this goal of becoming immortal, of becoming the best. And I like her standing her ground and saying no, in the physical for her own self-worth, but also as a representation of his internal journey that needs to happen to stop pushing your humanity aside.
Beautifully said. And of course, a bridge is a place where you cross from one shore to another. And it seems
Yeah.
like this is a bit of a crossing has occurred here where
Oh
Otsu
yeah.
becomes determined to follow him.
Yeah.
There's a realization. I think even he realizes he's in love with her at this point. I think he's,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I agree. I definitely think so. And she's also acknowledged how badly she misses him and how much she cares about him as well. So they
Yeah.
just got to talk to each other.
Yep, I think so. Little communication here, folks. So, all right, anything else on volume 10, or shall we move on to volume
No, let's
11?
go for it.
Okay, so one of the cool things I thought that we did, that Inoue did in volume 11 was this. Again, I love the juxtapositions that you see. It seems like a manga thing because we saw a lot of this in Vinland Saga too. But I love this idea of Musashi standing over Seki Shusai, who is asleep, right? And there's this whole sequence of this juxtaposition between his own father, the invincible guy, right? Whom he realizes, Munisai, I think his name was, right? The father. He
Mhm.
realizes lived in fear. There's this image of the patriarch of strength, but there's a
Mhm.
fundamental difference that this insight he gets between someone like his father and this old man who's lying here seemingly passively. So what did you think of the difference in how it was presented, with some funny elements in there too, with the back scratcher and stuff? What did you think of that? I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, and the mountain that these people
Oh,
are
yeah.
in his life, right? Yeah, there's a lot of symbolism going on here with
Yeah.
how he views people that are stronger than him or that
Yeah.
are more mighty than him, a mountain that he has to climb, something that he has to overcome, overpower.
Yeah.
And as well, we also got that same kind of thing with shucks, the old man. What was his name?
Seiki Shusai?
Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Um Yagyu?
He's the
Would it
he's
be
the he's the granddaddy of the Yagyu
of the
clan in
Yagyu,
school.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Yagyu is his surname. So
Yeah.
Seki Shusai, I've got it written down. It's very challenging.
I
Seki
know.
Shusai, he has the same thing though, where he thinks that it's
Yes.
himself standing over him, and he
Yeah.
realizes that it's another man. Thinks it's actually his grandson for a minute there, Hyogo. But anyway, it's also him Musashi having to face against himself at one point, and
Yeah.
all this internal stuff that's going on where they're really left to challenge pieces of themselves that they need to
Yeah.
face.
Yeah, you're so right. There's that whole, what you're talking about, I think, is when he sees himself. And
Mm-hmm.
there's this illusion. He's in space there, like he's standing on nothing, and there are stars above him. And I love this stuff. I'm definitely here for this. And you hear with, I think it's Seki Shusai, who sort of becomes Ine,
Yeah,
the Hoijin. There's a moment when he becomes him, and it's, you're not sure exactly whose mind is doing all of this, but it's really cool. And I think the message that comes from that is, one of the things that I loved was another quote here from this moment of this sort of spiritual enlightenment. Swimming in the middle of an ocean, one can never realize how vast it truly is.
which was a quote from the monk.
Yeah, yeah. So, and another very Buddhist moment as well.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the last time we talked, I told you that story that I read in the book by Thich Nhat Hanh,
Right, yes.
actually about a person being like a wave,
Mm-hmm.
and all of life, all of the universe being the ocean, and we're
Mm-hmm.
really, we think of ourselves while we're alive, as separate, as individual, as a wave, but really a wave is just part of that whole
Right.
vast entity. So I really thought of that in that moment, where you just realize how vast everything is, and how you are connected to everything. And so Musashi's getting these insights in this moment.
Yeah. And that really ties into this plight that Musashi has, when he steps on the nail later on, and
Yeah.
he curses himself because all of these other people that he's met that he looks up to would have known. They would have had the foresight, they would have had the connectivity with what's around them
Yes.
to be able to sense that there was a nail there and avoid that injury. And he has not gained that sight yet, that connection with the wider world. He's still very as Seiki Shusai
Yes.
put it, he's still very focused on himself. That was
Yes.
something that he really
You got
nailed
it.
into him. Yeah.
You
And
got it.
that's, I think forsaking that sense of, or that fixation on self is going to be a key part of him gaining that enlightenment.
Yeah, so true. Which is why he sees Seiki Shusai as a mountain, as you literally
Yeah.
see him, his profile
Yeah.
is merged with this mountain.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, I'm from Vermont originally, and the highest mountain in Vermont is called Mount Mansfield, which, if you look at it from the side, looks like a profile of a man's face.
Ah,
Yeah, so I was so reminded of that.
yeah.
But it's also a message, again, that fits with this whole Buddhist philosophy of our oneness with the world around
Mm,
us. And you can see that Seiki Shusai has merged with the life around him. He's part of the landscape. He's
yeah.
part of the stars. He understands that. He's gained that insight and he holds it within him. Whereas Musashi gets these glimpses of it, I think. And then,
Mm-hmm.
as you said, he's so focused on the self and being the strongest and all of that, and being so fear driven,
Mm-hmm.
like his father, that he loses his grasp of that insight, I think, a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So focused on fear driven, yes, but also on proving yourself and your own worth in the world, and elevating yourself beyond others, and all of that really isn't what the purpose of being here is, or what our usefulness on this earth is.
Yeah.
It's not about dominating, it's about connecting.
So true, which is that, I think, one of the things expressed by that, my sword is one with heaven and earth, which is
Mm-hmm.
the saying that comes down from Issei, is the shortened version of the guy's names. The full name is Kami Izumi Issei no Kami Hidetsuna or something like that. I'm gonna go with Issei from now on. Apparently,
Yep.
so he's that granddaddy mentor figure, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what is being remembered by Seiki Shusai in that moment. And he's reached that state of enlightenment as well,
Mm-hmm.
at this point. And I thought it was cool too how there seems to be a genuine confusion from him. And we've noted last time the similarity between Musashi and Hyogono Ruke, his grandson. So that was kind of interesting that he initially seems to think it's his grandson. Do you think that was genuine or not? Or was that part of his act? Like he was sleeping, right?
Yeah, I took it as genuine,
Okay.
because we did start the next volume with him indulging in passions and being distracted and that, and then coming back and being chastised of,
Right.
I was under attack and you didn't know, because you were you were focused on yourself without
Mm.
connecting with what was going on around you, without being
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah.
Which the idea, I mean, I think the philosophy of Buddhism, or one of the philosophies, is kind of sacrificing all indulgence for the sake of that kind of zenness. I could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong. So maybe he was saying you shouldn't have indulged at all. I mean, I'm not into sacrifice all enjoyment. So I would interpret it more as, it's not the sin, the fault isn't in indulging so much as it is becoming so selfish and so fixated that you lose that connectivity.
Right.
Is
Yeah,
that
I'm
how did you
definitely.
take all that?
Yeah, no, I'm not a Buddhist scholar by any means. But I think you're right. There is an element of what's called detachment to
Mm,
Buddhism, detachment from the self in order to realize one's connection with the universe. And part of that detachment is realizing that these desires are fundamentally could be in the way of the self-realization of the one's enlightenment. That if you just focus on the desires, the lusts of the world, you can't reach enlightenment that way.
and Matahachi, I think, is a great example of that, where
Bingo.
yeah,
And
he's
he shows
so,
up here too.
yeah,
Yeah.
he does. Yes, he
Yeah.
does. He gets his own little spotlight, but he's so fixated on the self and on indulgence and on elevating himself through lies and trickery and all that, that he really is just spiraling, and his life is a mess and he can't find any sort of peace or happiness. So he's kind of that juxtaposition, I think, of what we're talking about.
So right. Yeah, you nailed it, I think. And he's I mean, it's pretty pathetic now. He ran away now he's with his mother and his uncle gone, and he's bored. He's just
Mhm.
bored. He's just so focused on himself that because he can't indulge, because he's with mommy, he can't indulge his desires. He's bored. So he is a prime example of an individual who's wallowing in his attachments, and
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and is very much fear driven, and
Yeah,
he's unmasked as well as an imposter here. Yeah.
exactly. And I think that it's so clear. Um, and I don't want to dig into the next volume yet because there's still plenty to talk about here. But it's so clear that his uncle genuinely loves him and
Yeah.
cares for him. And
Yeah.
his calling him out was not an act of gotcha. It was an act of love, of, find yourself. You're better than this facade, this mask that you're putting on to try to be someone that you're not. And it was a loving call out. And Matahachi, because of the life that he's chosen, because of the decisions that he's made, his reaction to that call out was to run, which
Right.
has been his reaction to everything.
Yeah. Yep. You're absolutely right. I couldn't have said it better. So we do have his unmasking, though. He encounters that samurai that he had previously run away from, and that guy knows that he's a fraud. And of course, his reaction once again is to run, run, run.
Once again, to run. Yeah.
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 The
Well,
other,
he's caught in a lie once again. And this
yeah,
time it was, I tricked you into revealing that you're not who you think you are. And yeah,
yeah.
again, it's run, but this time he's being chased.
Yep, yep, in a serious way. You get the feeling that he's gonna run out of ways to slip out of these things fairly soon.
Yeah.
But another I have to mention, because my favorite character had a brief little cameo here. Takuan shows up at the Yagyu place. It turns out he knows these people. He seems to know everybody, I guess. There's a nice little exchange between Takuan and Seiki Shusai there,
Yeah.
and the revelations about Otsu, who's gone in pursuit, along with Jotaro, in pursuit of Musashi, who has essentially abandoned them, right?
Yeah. No, it is interesting because his at the beginning of this volume, he's saying, or no, the beginning of the last volume of volume 10, he's saying a master is responsible for his disciples' mistakes,
Yes.
right? So he takes ownership of him. But then through these sequence of events, he seems to have descended back into sort of a self-loathing, realizing how um, how many mountains are in front of him. And because of that, he assumes that both Otsu and Jotaro are better off without him, even though he last saw Jotaro in a desperate state. He just assumes somebody's got to be better than me at this point because I still have so much work to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they clearly do see his worth. They do value him.
Yeah.
And so they're pursuing him.
Yeah, and he's oblivious, I think, at this point to what what potential is there in these relationships.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to be almost afraid of them
Yeah.
because of, I think, how he was branded a monster. There might be a part of him that feels like they're better off without me,
Yeah.
so that might be driving him as well. But we get to him in the next volume in 12, where he's ascending this mountain, and that's a wonderful. I know the rock climbing metaphor would work really well with you, right? Did you
Can't
read
believe he free soloed a mountain. Don't
Yeah.
do that.
How did you like that scene with him going up?
Actually, before we get into it, I want to talk about that. But before we do, I really want to dig into the revelation that Musashi had about his father during
Oh
this
yes, let's do it.
spiritual
Yeah,
tussle.
go for it.
Because
Yeah,
that I think was my favorite part of this volume.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so every time we've seen his father, he's been this domineering, overbearing, large presence in his life. And
Yeah,
each time he sees him, he's reverted back to this childlike state. And in this encounter, which I don't think it really happened in anyone's mind, I think that it was all in the spiritual, and they were both kind of experiencing it at the same time. The stuff with the back scratcher wrapping around his sword and everything. I think that was something that was happening. Yeah. Very, very, it was all otherworldly. It was beyond the physical.
Yep.
And that's very much true. This insight that he gained through this spiritual battle that he was locked into, this goal that he had of invincibility, because his father fought so hard to be known as the invincible one and to prove his dominance over the world.
Yeah.
His removal even from his own son, because he was so because of this fixation. And through all this, he realized that his father was led by fear, which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was so powerful to kind of watch his father shrink at that revelation, get smaller, even standing on a tree stump to get taller. And then this panel especially was really powerful to me, where his father is now shrouded in darkness, a tiny little figure, and Musashi has turned away. And he's still screaming, "You are the son of the invincible," still trying. He's got a knife in his hand, trying to be dominant. But to Musashi, he's lost his power. And I thought that was so powerful.
Yeah, brilliant. Just beautifully said. I also think the injection of humor into this whole scene with the back scratcher, which is being used for a different part of the body, I thought it was wonderful, because it's like poking a hole in a balloon. You're showing the absurdity of this very macho posing, this very patriarchal kind of I'm invincible. And here you have this old man scratching himself in a way that just sort of undermines that whole thing. It's like, you're being absurd, Musashi. This whole attachment to you're actually being fear driven here. And you're being attached to yourself, and attachment to the self, thinking of oneself as more important than the rest of the universe, is inherently absurd. It's silly, especially when you realize that you are in fact part of this whole tapestry, that you're a little bit tiny part of it, but you're also, that's important because you are part of everything. So I just love how the absurdity and the humor serves to further the revelation here. I thought it was really, really well done.
No, I agree. And I think it also emphasizes what we've already seen, which is that this enlightenment that these men have gained means that they don't have to prove themselves. They don't have to lift up a weapon, that, in this asleep state, or this half paying attention state, that they can still overpower, because what is beyond the physical is more important, or at least as important.
Yeah. So my sword is one with heaven and earth, so I can fight you with a back scratcher.
Or a groin scratcher, whichever.
Yeah, whatever you want to use it for.
Yes.
Yeah. Apparently that object is called a Maganote or something like that. It was it's told to us what this thing is called in one of the gray panels there. So yeah. But cool. So that I'm so glad you brought that up. But how about the rock climbing? Were you like yes when you saw that scene? Oops.
It's awesome. I love it.
Okay,
I was actually reading. Sorry.
No, you froze up just for a wee bit there. You're good now.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, it was amazing. It's funny because I don't know, is rock climbing just a really common theme in manga?
Yeah.
Because Gon free solos in Hunter x Hunter. I just read, or I didn't finish, a rock climbing manga that's like dedicated to a climber, and he's free soloing all the time. Like,
wow.
Japan, it's dangerous. Don't do it.
But it's a wonderful metaphor, though, isn't it?
It was wonderful. Yeah, I think as he saw his father shrink down and he looked towards true examples, his goal was to get the enlightenment that they've received, to get to where they are and understand what they're understanding. He's kind of reset his goals, his alignment for who he looks up to. And him climbing that mountain, him kind of getting past these hurdles and being able to get to the top and smile and say, okay, I can see a little bit more now. That was really cool.
Really cool. And I love how when he gets to the top, he's like, yeah, I'm on top. Then he looks around and the mist clears and there's other peaks much higher than where he is. And that's when he thinks of Otsu and Jotaro, I think very appropriately. I think he realizes, okay, I'm invincible. I'm on top. But wait, actually, there might be there might be bigger things in life. There might be more
Yeah.
important things, right?
Other things that I want to, I
Yeah.
don't know. I think you're right. I think realizing that there were other peaks higher than that one was important for him to realize that, you know, my journey isn't just going to be done once I scale a mountain, but
Yeah.
then also realizing I can see more clearly and I know more of my path, but I don't want to travel it alone. I don't want to be up here by myself, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I'm excited for them to get back together for the three.
Me too. Me too, for sure. But he is, of course, he is proving himself as he proceeds. He's beating up
Oh, he's
people
learning, yeah.
with his sheath, you know, without
With
having
his
even need to
sheath.
use his sword. He's,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. So he's making a name for himself, apparently. But then, as you said before, he steps on that nail, which what a moment there too. I mean, that's a reality check for him, as you said before, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. It's realizing that he still doesn't have that communion with his surroundings, that he can't see what he should be seeing at this point. He's still so set on himself. And realizing how far he still has to go, which is good. It's good to have those constant reminders that, you know, he's not just a different man like
Yeah.
Like Matahachi wants to make himself in an
Yeah.
instant.
Well, speaking of Matahachi, what did you think of Uncle Gon's death and the whole scene leading up to that? And eventually, we do get Matahachi discovering his uncle. But that was really quite something, I thought. Uncle Gon's moment of sacrifice there.
Once again, he clearly cares about his nephew, like
Yeah.
truly, truly invested in him. We got that little flashback when Matahachi was saying, "No, I want this. I want to prove myself. I need to get out from underneath my mother's wing. I need to make a name for myself."
Yeah.
And you know, he's still in this moment, still under his mother's wing. He's stolen a new name for himself, but he
Yeah.
still can't get out from underneath her wing. And it's because he hasn't actually done that. What could make him into his own man at this point.
Yeah.
And once again, the lies, the manipulation, the running away from every conflict that comes his way now has this dire consequence. He's
Yep.
lost someone who truly loved him because they were covering up his mistakes.
Yep. And it's as if you did this, Matahachi. He's confronted with, as you said, the consequence of his
Yeah,
actions. And so
the
someone who cared
responsibility
about
of
him
them.
is gone, who died in a horrible way, trying to help Matahachi.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very, and he comes back. He's forced to go back and bury him by interesting revelation. We find out who I forget his name, but the chain and sickle guy.
I've written it down. Here it is. It's Sujakazi.
Yes, Sujakazi, the character from the first
Mm-hmm.
bind up,
Yeah,
uh,
that had him hanging from a tree.
who's now known as Baiken, or he's pretending to be Baiken, this
Yeah,
outlaw.
pretending to be Shishu ha Shishido
Shishido Baiken.
Baiken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We'll get
We're,
there. We'll get
we're getting
there.
through it. We're getting through it. Yeah, so he's pretending, and there's a girl there as well who is an interesting relationship. She's very mysterious, obviously trained in martial arts, has her own sickle and chain
Chain
little,
and sickle, yeah.
yeah. So that,
Ringo.
yeah, yes. What did you think of all
Yeah,
that?
her speed and all of that. Yeah. Um, man, there's a lot to cover there. I think my favorite part of all this, other than the action and the way that was drawn,
Yeah.
is this concept of chasing a ghost.
Mm,
He as well has renamed himself, has taken on the identity of another person, and is living the legend of another that he didn't earn.
nice,
And
interesting, huh?
and this idea that the legend that he's living on was just a thief. He was just a ne'er-do-well. He was nothing
Yeah,
until he died and samurais started seeking out his legend.
right.
And it's all just a facade. Everybody's chasing ghosts here. And you know, you have that physical chasing ghosts that's happening, but then you also have, you know, what's beyond that of what they've been doing all this time, this ghost of immortality, this ghost of being the best, of being the mightiest and the strongest. And they're chasing something that isn't there, and that was never the point.
Yeah, very well said. I love it. Yeah, it's interesting because in the case of Chuji Kaze, I'm sorry about that pronunciation.
No, go for it.
Or I'm going to call him Baiken because that's who he's posing as.
Let's do that.
It's easier to say for me. So I'm probably mispronouncing that too, but whatever. So it's interesting because he's almost the opposite of Matahachi. Matahachi has he's an imposter, basically posing as a person who is actually very accomplished, who he's trying to take that person's aura and borrow it for himself, which obviously isn't working out too well, but he keeps doing it. Whereas it seems like Baiken is basically he's the one who created the aura. The real Baiken was just some, petty outlaw who really hadn't been much of anything. As the old woman who takes in Musashi explains, they were just some nobody outlaw. It's only when he really died that suddenly his legend started growing, and that started bringing in all these samurai trying to prove themselves because of the growth of this. So it's in a way, he's running away. Baiken or Chuji Kaze, he's running away. He's doing almost the opposite of what Matahachi is trying to do. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. That's a very astute observation. I hadn't really made that connection, but you're right. That he's taken on someone else's legacy, or someone else's identity, but he's the one that's turned it into a legacy.
Yeah.
Through the help of Reno, the little girl.
Yeah. Whereas Matahachi is doing the opposite. He's taking someone else's accomplishments and trying to graft them onto himself. Right.
He's trying to puff himself up to be big enough to fill those shoes. Whereas you say it so much better than I can. She's just Kai. I can.
Yes.
He is he's created the legend of his own merit.
Yes. And it'd be interesting to find out because he's been scarred. So stuff has obviously happened to him. And since we saw him way back in the first bind up, he went from a very playful, he was the brother of the first bandit that Musashi killed way back, the early volumes. But he's gone from this playful, powerful person to somebody who's obviously physically and spiritually scarred, I think.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And Musashi acknowledges that too. We've both changed so much since our last meeting. We're really new. Yeah. We're new men. And I really liked, did I? No, I didn't. Oh, yes, I did. I really liked this scene where they were both trying to sleep, and she starts testing him in his sleep, and he proves that he has exactly what Musashi is looking for, which is that awareness, that openness to I'm asleep or I'm trying to sleep, but I still know what's happening around the world around him.
Yeah, absolutely.
You froze up.
Yeah, I'm very. Okay. We're back. Okay. I'm really curious about the relationship between Chuji Kaze and Rindo, because it seemed to me at first like he was sort of protecting her and that sort of thing, but he at the end says that no, she's my teacher, right? So that's going to be interesting. And she's very mysterious too.
Oh, she's awesome. Yeah, I love her. Yeah, she clearly has a lot of knowledge to her, a lot of experience and understanding while still being so young. And I also loved
Chuji Kaze.
Thanks, Chuji Kaze. I love his almost matter of fact when Musashi says, "Who's your master? How did you learn this?" And he's just like, "Her." Look at her. Obviously, it's her. This kind of just, I don't know. Her legend is so strong that it's like, how could you not recognize her as a master immediately? And I'm excited. I'm excited to explore their connection as well as to get to know her better. I'm sure we're going to get to actually interact with them more.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for it.
Yeah. So when she was doing that, she wasn't just being obnoxious or playful. She was testing him,
That's
right?
how I interpreted it.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. And she seemed like an old soul to me, right? Even though she's a young person, she
Mm-hmm.
seems like an old soul. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to get to know her some more for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she seems to have a technique that she herself built,
Mm,
unless it's going to be exposed that someone else taught it to her. But it seemed like this chain and sickle thing began here. Like this is a new thing.
yeah,
So it seems like this is something she's hilled. She's has
yeah,
a lot of ingenuity and a lot of experience that's caused her to be someone who can create a new form of fighting
yeah,
for that time.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, same here. One of the last things I think from here that we haven't talked about would be how Matahachi's mother almost dies, drowns, and is saved, ironically, by Otsu and Jotaro, and ends up being carried away and in her sort of delirious state says, "Got to kill Otsu," you know. So that, what did you think of that scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was very much just a reflection of what's been going on internally, that all
Mm,
that matters to her is to keep Matahachi under her wing and to get vengeance on Takezo and Otsu because they have wronged her. They have been what's upset her life. Not her son, her perfect son didn't
right.
upset her life. It's their betrayal. So it's just kind of those murmurings of the deepest self that we saw there.
Yeah,
Um,
beautiful. Yeah,
yeah.
this is
And
a
Otsu,
person.
sorry, go.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say Otsu doesn't share that sentiment. She still respects her.
Yeah, yeah, so well said. You're absolutely right. I think that for some reason she's called Granny, although she is Matahachi's mother and Uncle Gon's sister.
Mm,
But she looks very aged,
she
and
does.
I think it's the message here is this is someone who's deluded by attachment to self, someone
Mm,
who thinks I'm more important than everyone else, and people like that tend to be pretty out of touch in some ways. I think that
mm-hmm.
when you
That's a
believe
good
that you're the most
connection.
important thing in the universe and act in such a selfish, narcissistic way, you tend to have a very warped vision, I think, of other
Mm-hmm.
people and of the world. And she's a pretty good example of that.
That is very well put. Yeah, she fits right in with those themes of what we're trying to shake off and kind of be free from. And she's so beholden to it that
Yeah.
it's really consumed her entire life.
Yeah. And possibly aged her even. Yeah. So,
Yeah, good point. Good point.
yeah.
I do want to take note. We talk about the artwork all the time, but I want to take note of how the way he drew the chain and sickle action, like these panels.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's
Yeah.
something else. It's something really special. And there's loads. Like I could just pull up every single one of them. I could just do all the panels. The
Yeah.
way he draws the specific details and the movement, and it's
Yeah.
just when the ingenuity of the weight being what truly is the deadly thing. And
Yeah.
I think there was a line, actually, I'm pretty sure I wrote it down. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe I can't. But he was drawn into this fight thinking you're just going to show me, and he realizes that once again he was outsmarted, he was outmatched because he wasn't being aware enough, and now he's in this fight that could, oh, there, he said something along the lines of I'm not willing to die here, I'm not willing
Mhm.
to do a life or death fight in this one, which I
Yeah.
think is a really big show of his growth, because before he had that abandon and that I'll take on any fight, and if I die, I die. Whereas now he's actually starting to value his life and value which fights he chooses.
Yeah. These two also have a history. And I think there's some respect between them,
Yeah.
more desire for friendship than rivalry, but there's still a rivalry going on here. I wonder how symbolic the chains are going to become too. It's just such a great, ripe symbol, I
What
think.
a Vinland Saga junkie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We got to
So,
draw those parallels any way we
I mean,
can.
they seem like pretty, there's a lot of them, I
Yeah.
think. So,
Yeah. Yeah, these are very thematically dense. So it wouldn't surprise me if that tied in with everything too.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Anything else from any of these 3 volumes, Murphy?
No, I think we hit it all, at least as far as I can tell.
Okay, I think we did a pretty good job anyway. We took a good stab at it. So thank you so much. I want to thank you for another wonderful discussion. I'm so
Always.
excited by the idea of continuing in this series and finding out what happens with these characters and what how anyway continues to incorporate these themes in here. It's just I'm really loving this series.
Agreed. Very much. I think every Visbig that we've read has just elevated from the last.
Yep,
So,
I
so
agree.
excited to continue on. Really excited to spend more time with these characters and see what they have to offer.
All right. Well, with that, then, everyone, thank you so much for watching. The way we're doing this is the odd episodes are on Murphy's channel, Murphy Napier. Now, it keeps coming up as vlogs, but it's reviews now is the
I
real
just
thing.
changed it yesterday. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Murphy Napier, you'll find it. Just type Murphy Napier and you'll find it. It's pretty
It's
easy to
Murphy
find.
Napier reviews now.
Yes, Murphy Napier reviews. And so now it's going to come up that way when
Mm-hmm.
I do at Murphy Napier. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to go, okay, good. So, so it's there. The odd ones are there, and the even ones are going to be on my channel. And of course, I think we're both compiling playlists for this as well. So you can find the
Yes.
playlist on Murphy's channel or on mine. Either way, you're going to see the same videos. So, all right, everybody, thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.